Have you ever felt like one bad day in your business could take you down with it? Well, congratulations, you're an entrepreneur. We've all been there, where our identity gets welded to our business, where every mistake feels fatal. A payroll glitch, it feels like the apocalypse. A slow quarter feels like proof that we were a fraud all along. We've been found out. And suddenly we're measuring our self-worth by the company business checking account. In today's episode of the podcast, we're breaking that cycle wide open. Why your brain fuses your identity to your business, how that creates panic, shame, and chaos, and the simple shift that lets you detach without losing momentum. If you're exhausted from living inside your business instead of leading it, this episode's for you. It was a warm summer morning.
All right.
A warm summer morning when I awoke to a text message from a new employee. The new employee had texted me a screenshot of their bank account, now flush with over $107,000. With the tagline, "I think I got overpaid," laughy face emoji. I went to our banking app and opened it up, and sure enough, the bank account was negative $235,000. That's just another day in owning a business. Thanks for joining us here on the Entrepreneur Addict, the podcast where you learn how to lead without losing yourself to your business. My name is Matt Tompkins. I am an entrepreneur/addict.
My name is Lance Pendleton, and I too am an entrepreneur and addict.
Yes. So I feel like it was almost like a...
I know. Well, the fact that you winked when you actually said the title there, I was like, oh, wink? Yeah, that was one of those like
extra touch.
Wink Martindale there.
Yeah, I feel like, the wink is something it's lost its majestic power because... you really only a certain personality type in certain situation can you pull off a wink, because a wink...
Game show hosts, those are the only people that can pull that off.
Or if you're silly and whimsical enough, you can pull it off every day. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of places you can't wink. Like you can't wink, you don't want to wink at another guy when you're standing next to him at a urinal unless he's into that, right? You don't want to wink at a woman when you're in an office place because, unless she's into that, and odds are, guys, she's not into that. All right, so the identity of the entrepreneur and the identity of the business. Now, these become lumped together really fast. And I think for some realistic reasons, right? Usually you're starting off a business. I'm probably not that uncommon. Started off, I spent 17 years in a abusive relationship with radio and television. I kept going back thinking, this time he'll be different. And no, radio is always the same. But I love radio. I love TV. I also hate radio. But I finally got out of it. And I thought, you know what? If I can make the massive salary, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not exaggerating. At the time, I was making $50,000 a year. And that was the most I'd ever made, period, in my life. And I thought that was like luxury status. Holy look at these checks I'm cashing.
Yep.
Now, baby. And this was not a long time ago.
Yeah.
We're talking 2018. Right? So, prior to that, I had done a television show where we got paid $500 an episode, 30-minute episode. Imagine editing a 30-minute video today, only getting paid $500.
Yeah.
The only people doing that are in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And it's not good, but they're producing. So, my point is, that was the most money I'd ever made. And I thought, you know what? If I can piecemeal together teaching, I was teaching 3 courses at a community college, and then it's $19,000 a year. I can lump that into this. I'm still working part-time at the radio station doing a morning show solo. So that's a couple hours a week or a couple hours a day I'm getting there. And then I got these couple clients and a couple of things, piece it together. Make it adds up. I think my first year one, it was $38,000. And I'm okay, I'm ready to make the jump. I can turn down the radio contract renewal and just do this, right? Never in a million years did I expect it to grow to anything bigger. So I started off, it was just me. It literally was me. It's my identity and everything is pushing and driving this thing. And then as you grow, there isn't that distinction or separation. And so then everything, for good, the bad, the ugly, that is tied to your business is also tied to you. Your identity is one and the same. Yeah,
and it's sad but true. The reality, I think, that a lot of us face is this concept that the success of the business is an expression of myself, and the failure of the business is an expression of myself. And do you know the difference between guilt and shame?
So guilt would be, let me see if I can get this pop quiz correct here this time. Guilt would be when you've done something that you feel bad, done something to somebody else and you feel bad, and so you go own it or apologize to that person or try and make it right. Shame would be where you're internalizing that, where you're blaming yourself.
Yeah, so exactly right. So it's, guilt is when you feel badly about something you've done. Shame is when you feel badly about who you are. And a lot of times I see that entrepreneurs talk about feeling guilt around certain things when in reality, what they're feeling is shame. And I see that most often because of what you just talked about, where, you go through these episodes of the business is struggling in this particular area and they internalize that as it's my fault, right? I would almost guarantee in the story that we opened with about that simple like numerical clerical error, right? I almost guarantee there's some part of you at that point, though, that also thought, as you laugh and say, well, what are you going to do? That also somewhat internalized that to be able to say, like, oh, I probably should have caught this sooner, or I maybe should have, or now I got to go apologize to all these people and try and make it right.
There was the panic because, like, the identity for me was attached to all of these different people who were on our team at that point. So at that point, it was like the largest that our team had been. We had all these new people, new hires, and I'm like, how are we going to pay these people? And like that, the overwhelming cash flow doom that hangs over all of our heads as business owners. That was the first time that I'm like, holy shit, like this is, and this came off like this was like a few weeks of like just blow after blow after blow.
Right.
Like one of our business partners, she's like a business coach, and she's like, I have not seen a company take on so many personal and professional. So I'm coming off the heels of like just bad personal relationships that nearly destroyed me. Then had a personal relationship that was also a professional relationship that just blew up. With somebody that was like a sister to me that was we're very close. That just blew up unexpectedly. Then we have the taxes that got hit. Like, hey, you're gonna have $90,000 in extra taxes you're gonna have to owe. Then that's followed by a blow of $235,000 negative business checking account. And I'm like, what is going on? Who did I piss off in the heavens? At that point, yes, I was laughing, but the panic and the overwhelm of like, this one is different because like, well, what if we can't pay people? And what do we tell people? Like people, they don't care. They don't care. Like that's a weird thing. It's a distinction that I noticed between being like an employee, being like and owning a business and having employees is that like most employees, and when I was one, I didn't really care. I don't give a what you're going through.
Right.
Am I going to get paid? All right. I work for you. I expect to get paid. And so then there's this sense of responsibility that you attach to your identity, owning the business of like, okay, it's I have to pay them. And legally you do. If they're like employees, like your Department of Labor is going to come after you if you don't. But like you don't want to disappoint them. So like I've taken out loans. I've taken out like a 401k and like retirement funds simply to be able to pay people in times of crunch,
Well, it's really hard because you feel a level of responsibility that you wouldn't, as you just said before, that you wouldn't normally feel.
Yeah.
When you're operating for yourself and you're flying solo, great, you're responsible to only you. When you've got other people that are depending upon you for their own family's well-being, that is an incredibly big responsibility. And so, ironically, true story about me, when I met my wife, I was 34 years old. I'd been sober for a little while. And I had this dating profile that was up. And my dating profile, I was running like 6 miles a day. I went to yoga 4 times a week. I ate kind of like pescatarian, vegetarian. I was, sober. I was living this like amazing clean life. I lived by myself.
You were a douchebag, it sounds like.
Sort of, yeah, but like a happy, healthy douchebag, right? So I go through this whole process where I'm living this life, and on this dating app, here is this woman that I meet in the dating app who was the complete opposite of me. Right? She ate burgers all day long, and she loved, she was a professional chef. She loved cooking and food. She, was like the yoga thing was like, forget that. Like she never did yoga and stuff like that. She had 2 kids, and I didn't want kids. It was like in my profile that I was like, I'd be open to the idea, but I don't really want kids. So the point of the story is, for me, this idea of why didn't I want kids? Why did I want this happy lifestyle that I had sort of created for myself was because I didn't want the responsibility. I literally didn't want the responsibility of having to wake up in the middle of the night and be concerned with taking care of other people. Right. And some people say that's totally selfish, Matt. Some people say that that's, not a great way to live. Me, I was totally fine with it. Now, again, best part of the story is I fell in love with her, and all the differences that we had kind of commingled. The irony right now is I will eat 5 cheeseburgers a week. I can't tell you the last time I did yoga. She's a certified yoga instructor. She eats clean and healthy all the time. She's like I'm the one that basically sits there and is like having people poke me asking when the sprinkle is going to be. But like, I can't understand in the entrepreneur world when we got to this place really where, you know, we take on this level of responsibility and it becomes something that then begins to consume us. Because much like dealing with addiction or anything else, the best part of addiction is that you have no responsibility at that point to anything else. Even though all this is falling apart around you, I didn't feel responsible for any of it. I wasn't responsible for it.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, of course my car's parked on the front lawn and I'm not wearing pants and I just woke up and don't know where I am. Oh, it must have been a good night. Yeah, it was like, must have been a good night. Yeah. Like, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of credit that like addicts, you know, don't get. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Like addicts, like they will go through anything, high and hell. Doesn't matter what it is to get that. I mean, like from like crazy, obscene, I would even say disgusting stories. Yes, disgusting. I mean, I can speak from my own experience of things that you will do to get that, right? And man, that's perseverance. That's grit. I mean, it's on an unhealthy level for an unhealthy thing. Yeah. You know, we become brilliant manipulators, liars. I mean, it is scary, like the yarns that I've spun.
Sure.
That's not uncommon, you know. And like you look at entrepreneurs, we do a lot of the same things, you know.
Yeah, I always equated it to the old Spider-Man. I don't know.
I think there was Spider-Man.
Spider-Man actually was
Spider-Man.
That might have been my landlord when I was younger. But
I think
anyway.
that was like a weird, you know, quartet that you started.
That was Frank Spiderman
as a theater arts major in college.
But let's be clear, I got thrown out of 2 colleges. So the interesting dynamic for me is if you think about that whole Spider-Man idea, like with great power comes great responsibility, combined then with, you know, this idea of, you know, there's a level of responsibility that comes with having a business. And that's one thing that's incredibly stressful. When you then add family, or when you then add employees, or when you then add these other things, that level is exponentially higher. And almost everything that I've learned in sobriety, right, is some of the most helpful stuff in trying to manage that process, because I can take that weight on. I can then, you know, and you and I talk about this often, this idea of like the anxiety level super high because there's all these things going on. We're trying to meet all these demands. But so many times I will look directly at the things that are going on around me and have to remind myself that I'm unbelievably grateful to have this amazing family, to have a person that cares about me, to have, you know, a nice home. Like all of that exists by no doing of my own. Literally everything I have in my life, Matt, is because of somebody else, literally. And you look at that and I then think, why am I taking on such massive responsibility that I'm feeling about something that other people aren't demanding of me? Like none of these people that I feel responsible for are demanding this of me. Sure, there's certain expectations that are there, but that demand is something that I place on myself. And I'm sure you can relate to that. It's just this like relentless cycle of demand, and a little bit of OCD for me mixed in there too, but
yeah, and I think like it's easy also with the identity to attach only the negatives.
Sure.
You know, like I would flip your script there, right? That's the thing. I'm going to flip you flip your own script. Do you flip your own script, or do you flip somebody else's script? I don't know. Flipping somebody else's script sounds like
it sounds like inappropriate. It's probably like an HR violation, but
let me flip my script here.
Yeah.
So yes, like what you're saying, like everything you've done is other people are involved in it, but like we avoid like the accomplishments that we've had as an entrepreneur, you know? So like we like to look at a negative as far as like our identity. We attach our identity to the company, and a company is us. And so if the company fails, it's attached to us, and that fear drives us, that fear of failure, embarrassment, whatever, worst case scenario that we've spun out in our minds. But then we also we ignore the fact of like, you know, there is this big thing of there wouldn't be a company if not for you. Like you were the sole and only reason why this company exists and has had any margin of success. So yeah, you may have had some ups along the way,
right?
But like until you've been driven out of business, like, you know, and even then you still had the accomplishment of this becoming a business and becoming successful enough for you to it up in the first place.
But do you think though that your business is successful exclusively because of you, or do you think
I think it's a team effort.
Okay.
But because it's not just one person. However, I think we don't give ourselves any of the credit. We only give ourselves the attachment to the failure of like, and I know there's like, 9 out of 10 clients happy as could be, and we focus on the one complaint. It's like we focus on only the negatives. And if you've ever done this, like looking back at your year or even keeping track through the year, like of just a log of like, here's the 5 cool things I did this week. And you start to look at it that way as opposed to just, because it's easy if you reflect on the whole year and you haven't kept track of like, oh, I remember all the things. I remember the negative $35,000 bank account.
Right.
I remember when I lost my friend. I remember when this happened and this and this. And it's like, well, wait, slow down a second here. Like, did you count in the time that you took a client who called you, just they wanted to do a video, and you turned it into $125,000 in annual recurring revenue? Did you talk about like this cool story about how this employee was able to buy her first home because she worked for you long enough? It was the first full-time job that she's had, or that you were able to, increase this social media following for this nonprofit that now has helped 21 people have received help that would not have otherwise received help if not for what you did for them and their website and their social media. Like, it's easy to just ignore the things, I think, but we, in that shame spiral, we don't want to give ourselves credit for the good things or acknowledge those good things. It's easier to just, it's almost like it's a familiarity with the pain of the fear. Like, it's just this painful place. Like, I know what it's like to live in dread. I can exist there. I don't want to give myself credit.
Right.
Because then that means like you said, success. What's that?
So let's explore this for a second, because I think it's super interesting, because this is one of my biggest blind spots. Because I genuinely believe that the success that I've had in my life is accidental. Like, I genuinely believe that I'm accidentally successful. And then I also believe that, and again, I know it's a false narrative, but it's hard to remind myself that all of the things that I've accomplished are going to fall apart at any minute. Like, I have this functional thought process that goes through, because it's driven by, I think, a lot of childhood and trauma and stuff. But I look at this all and I think all the time, Matt, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, look, I'm sitting here working with you. You and I met almost accidentally working on a separate project. We have a bunch of stuff in common. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be talking to people and doing this stuff. But I look at all of these things and I'm like, this was fun. Like, I'm going to be homeless living in a box under under the bridge soon. But, I might as well enjoy this while I'm here, because it's all going to fall apart at any minute. Like, that's literally the background noise that plays often.
And don't beat yourself up, because you need to be aware that the boxes under bridges have improved tremendously.
That's true.
Over
There's
some
some
couple decades.
And there's a lot of them, thanks to Amazon. Like, I got to have a whole condo.
Yes. And they're very thick cardboard. And you can get a lot of nice moving supplies.
Some tarps and stuff too.
Oh, tents too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anyhow, enough about living under a bridge. So when you have this identity crisis, that's another moment too. And I think everybody hits, I don't like that. It is true to call it an identity crisis. I think we go through multiple identity crises through our life. I think everybody does naturally. I don't think you're evolving and growing, unless you're a perfect human and you just evolve and grow naturally without any sort of ceiling that you need to break through, right? So we have these people, like, it's a midlife crisis. It's an identity crisis of like, who am I? What do I really want? Is this the life I want? Like, what happens when your identity and the business are one and the same, and then you hit a personal midlife crisis? Then what happens to the business?
I mean, I'm living that currently.
Yeah, it seems.
It's one of those things where I look at the past, I look at the past 7 years of my business life. Every year I've done a little bit better than the year before. The past 3 years I've done a lot of bit better than the years before. And I've built to this now the first year in which I've got my accountant going, you're way off from last year. And I'm like, holy. And it's really scary. Like, it's genuinely scary, because it starts to feed that narrative of like, see, here we go. Eventually we knew it was all going to fall apart, right? So how do you then step back is what I'm working on currently. And, a lot of that is because I am in a change process. I've got a new business partner. We've got a couple new ventures going on. I've got the work that I'm doing still helping entrepreneurs and people in that sense. And, the reason the business isn't doing well is because I took my eye off the prize. I got distracted by a bunch of shiny other things that were happening with my new business partner. We started working on new projects and things, and they're all great. But it was all like, oh, and next month, this is going to happen. Well, next month would come and it didn't happen. It was like, oh, well, that's because of this, but now this is going to happen. And it wouldn't happen. And it's like, I had to recognize, well, wait a second, your business is falling apart. Why? Because, and think about addiction, right? all of a sudden this new energy was drawing me into this really cool, promising, potentially next level experience. I mean, I'm going to be 50 years old this October, right? And for me, I know, right? It's really like, it's unnerving.
Damn.
I mean, I'm at the spot now where like I sneeze and I pull something out.
So
like
that's why, because he showed me, like he was showing me his like health app thing, and it said that he is a biological 43.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you bragging about that?
Yeah, because I'm an old man. It's
I didn't realize
not
you
good.
were that old. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, then
no.
congrats on the 43.
Thank you.
That's impressive.
You know, this is completely unrelated, but you know how you realize you're old? When you go to the barber shop and for the first time ever, they start trimming your ear hair for you. Like, that's how you know you're actually old at that point. I was like, what are you doing? Ew, I have hair there now? Like, this is not good. But
whoa, hang on. I know that's, I hate to go on a side tangent, but you didn't realize you had hair growing out of your ear until somebody voluntarily cut it. You don't have a mirror that you own that you can look in.
It was so wispy and non-existent. As I've gotten older, I now have like
a
the old
single
man
hair sticking out of my ear. I'm going to know it from age 25 on.
Well, that's kind of odd in and of itself, and I didn't really have anything
Every
like
man
that.
should notice ear hair that's coming out of orifices in your body. You're not looking. This is what happens to us, men. This is what happens to us, and this is why women don't want us anymore. And even gay men. Oh no, because most gay men are
they're
gay men. They get the ear.
They're
hair.
really good.
Okay, listen. You have hair coming out of your nose and your ear and your eyebrows, and it takes 20 seconds. 20 seconds. 20 seconds to trim that.
Yes, which I do all of them, but I never saw the ear. Bro, I'm not sitting there looking at my ears in the mirror, like, do I have hair growing in here? Like, it just happened one day. Like, I'm sure it was there before. Anyway, let's move on now that we've accelerated my shame cycle. Okay. So the point being, though, is that like, as I've gotten older now in this spot that I'm in my business, I'm kind of freaking out because I'm sitting here looking at this because my identity has been so wrapped up in this. I've had this growth. I have a plan. I have family. I've got a daughter in college now, and I've got all these things that are going on where I'm like, these people are depending on me. And I've got the accountant going, yeah, you're kind of fucking up right now, dude. You need to get your shit back together. And you then have this like, can I make lightning strike twice? Like, can I actually continue this process? Well, all growth and change comes from the idea that you kind of got to slide back a little bit to move forward. You can't just continuously be going in that direction. That's not productive in the long run anyway. But I don't have to attach my identity to it. I don't think my wife loves me any less because we're making slightly less.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think my kids think of me any differently because, you know, that last quarter wasn't as good as the quarter before. I don't think my business partner or, you know, my family, well, my mom might think less of me, but my family in general would think of me any less because it was a bad quarter. But in my mind,
yeah,
that's a reality.
Yeah, and it's the, what is it? Life, in order to show you what you should do, sometimes life has to show you what you can't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a very painful experience to go through because that means you have to fail. You know, like if I'm going to fail forward, people say like, what the does that mean? Well, it means you're going to fail, but you're going to learn from something from it that you needed to learn to get further than before. You know, it's like I had a very oddly, it was like a being trapped in a living metaphor that was physical. Mm-hmm. One day, and it was like Donna visited a client. And we had this like natural churn out of left field with these clients, and like, so I wanted to shore up this client. Went out there, drove up like 45 minutes to meet him there at the shop, talk to him, and then secured it. Like, oh, okay, I think the bleeding has stopped. Like, all right. On my way back, get caught in a like tornado storm, right? Crazy weather. And like there's, you know, golf ball size hail. And where we're driving, there's like no bridges to go underneath. There's nowhere to park. It's like all that you can do is just literally white knuckle that shit and go as fast as you can and just drive through it till you get out. And then I got through it, and it was the most beautiful. It was like if I entered heaven, this is what it would look like. I mean, the sun and the rays of light, and like, I mean, Bing Crosby floated down from heaven and gave me a bottle of vodka. But I looked at this, and I remember like I was texting, which you probably shouldn't have been doing as I was driving through the storm. But I was like texting with my spouse, and I'm like, it was terrifying. I'm like going through, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Blah, blah. And like, oh my God, this is beautiful enough. I read the text when I got home, and it was this like, just like as if going through this storm is like became metaphorical.
Wow.
What I learned though at the end of it was we couldn't get as far on our own as we could by how far the storm will take us. And so sometimes you need to enter this storm. You need to accept the fact that like life is really just one big storm. And you have to accept that, because it's those storms are going to take you further than you could ever go on your own, you know? And so you have to just accept that you're in it, learn to live with it. And instead of being crushed by the storm, learn to dance in the fucking rain and enjoy it.
It's so aligns into that addiction model, though, of, again, you know, there's sometimes you're going to go through things, but if you stick through it one day at a time, as they say, it's just sort of like stay where you're at, be with it, and you're going to have to ride it out. But again, in essence, if you do that in the company of others where you're not alone in it, I think it's a huge difference. So what is the lesson for today that you would say, hey, Lance, here's what I want people to take out of this?
I think it's like unfucking your identity from your business. I mean, it's like if your truck is you and you have this trailer is your business, like you can detach that thing and set it down and you can drive off. And like sometimes you're driving around together, you're pulling each other, but like it doesn't have to be all the time. So if you're driving through this metaphorical storm and you're sliding all over the place, maybe detach the trailer and like it won't be so bad. I think that you have to embrace like a willful sense of delusion. And it's a healthy sense of delusion. Like stand-up comics and entertainers have this. Every show that I ever played where it's like 5 people there, it's New Year's Eve, there's a blizzard, and it's the 2 bartenders, girlfriend, and then a friend of the guitar player that nobody likes. And that's it in the whole venue. And you play a 4-hour set, lights out, as if you're playing to 5,000 people. Why? Because you have a healthy sense of delusion. You believe that at any moment, that record producer could walk through the door, stumble into your tasty licks, and turn you into a rock star overnight. And comedians, we have the same. That's why we play these old venues and we do these things that we do. And then we look back and those are the moments we actually love and appreciate the most. Like, oh, remember when we played that place in Meade, Nebraska, and it burnt down the next day at 2 a.m.? Yes, I remember that. It's a true story. But not saying there was any correlation to how hard we rocked and the place burning down.
Also, just so you know, Tasty Licks was also my stage name in Vegas when I had my one-man show.
That's too much. That's too much information.
Continue.
But no, I think it's you know, being able to detach yourself from that. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing. It's not who I am. And that's a really hard thing. It's easy to say, not so easy to do. But if you can separate yourself from it, and it's kind of this, like, I just describe it as a what the mentality. It's like, what the, you know, like what's going to happen? I'm going to have to start over? Okay, whatever. Like,
that's a good analogy right there, though, or thought process of what's the worst that can happen. You know, we talk a lot, and a lot of the folks that I work with, we talk about this idea that feelings aren't facts. You know, and again, fantastic things passed down to me from other people. It's not like I didn't just invent that, right? Feelings aren't facts. And that when you have that moment of thinking through what's the worst that can happen here, my therapist said this to me one time, and, you know, it was one of those like moments where it felt like someone just like pushed me in the middle of my forehead. It was like dope. Like, in the sense that I was talking about this, you know, fear of travel, and I had to go do a presentation, and I was like, and my anxiety was really bad, and it was like all this was coming up. And I was talking to him and I was explaining all this, and he was, you know, listening intently. And when I finished, he said, well, you know, so far you've survived everything you've been through. Like, nothing's killed you yet. Like, all this fear that I had in me, you know, was all my own manifestation, and all the fear of having to go through that fear of the things that might happen. Well, I've already been through that shit. I've already been through horrible. I mean, like, you know, I was homeless for a period of time in my life. I try to not remember that. I was living in a by the hour motel with my dog out of a garbage bag amongst literal hookers. Like, it was not a great place to be.
I know. That sounds pretty luxurious.
By the BWI airport, trust me, it wasn't. But the idea, and by the way, at that point, the way I looked, the hookers wanted nothing to do with me. But they were classier than I was, that's for sure. Yeah, I was bad. But, you know, you look at that and how quickly we forget this idea of, like, you know, you've done hard things, you can do hard things, and you've survived those hard things.
And anxiety isn't an emotion.
No.
It's something that's created.
Yeah.
We'll close with this. My favorite quote of all time. Don't let the fear of a temporary 3 or 4 prevent you from a permanent 9 or 10. By that, it means that imagine the worst case scenario. Okay, I lose everything. I have to start over. I lose my house. I lose everything, blah, blah, blah. My wife divorced me. My husband leaves me. And yes, I have a husband and a wife. Deal with it. Everything goes to it's still only what, a 3, a 4 out of a scale of 1 to 10. Like if we're saying 1 is like I'm being burned at the stake in hell,
right,
and 10 is absolute bliss, being tickled by Bing Crosby up in heaven. 3 or 4. That's a 3 or 4, right? And so then it really resets things like, okay, well, I can recover from a 3 or 4.
Right.
And so then what am I losing out on? What am I missing out on? It could be a permanent 9 or 10 that I am missing out on because I'm afraid of a temporary 3 or 4.
And that's perspective. And I think sometimes we lose perspective. So I think it's a great way to wrap the show up, because I think as an entrepreneur, if you're talking to other people and you're sharing what's going on for you, hearing perspective from them helps reset that process.
And unpack your business. If this episode made you realize just how tightly your identity is wrapped around your business, then don't leave it there. Inside Entrepreneur Addict, you'll find a link in the show notes here. You'll get simple tools to separate who you are from what you run, so the decisions stop feeling like they're life or death. The Small Business Marketing Framework. The link is in the notes. Check it out.